Hey everyone, it's Mark Ferguson with Investor More, and we are at the compound, which is a property with 3 houses and this beautiful commercial building. And we are going to be able to see this commercial building for the first time today. So I've owned this property for, almost 2 years now, which seems crazy. But we've never shown a video of this property because it's always been occupied by a tenant, a repair shop. And they just moved out, so we're gonna show the property, talk about that whole story. It's pretty crazy. And I'm trying to decide now how much I want to talk about the city and what they've been doing and how much I don't want to get myself in trouble, but knowing me, I'll probably say everything. We'll talk about the situation, what happened, and why they moved out, and all kinds of other interesting stuff. It's really a cool building, and what our new plan is for the building as well, because we do have a plan for it already. So of course, check out investormore.com for much more information on our flips, rentals, being an agent, all that great stuff. We like it when you like our videos. That's awesome. That helps us out. We like it when you comment. I love to hear what you guys have to say. And we love when you subscribe as well. So, like I said, we have this building right here. I think it's, 2,600 square feet? I can't remember. I'm gonna have to figure that out later and put a little note in here. But it's pretty big. We have that little house right here, that house right there, and then we're along a very busy 4-lane highway, and we have that house and garage over there. And this is all zoned commercial. Technically, I'm standing on a city street right here, which is part of our story that I'll talk about. Not that you can tell it's a street, but it is. And when we bought this place was a mess. Like, if you haven't seen the compound videos, it was pretty crazy. And I may have to make a playlist just for the compound, like I did for the complex, which is another crazy property we're working on right now as well. But basically, the city police department called this the compound. That was their name because they said it had basically more crime than any other area of town. It was kind of like one family that all lived in the houses together. And the police told us that they'd arrested murder suspects here, all kinds of different stuff. How much of that is true and not true, I don't know for sure. But actually, in our dealings with all the people here, they're always pretty pleasant and nice with us. We did cash for keys for 2 of the houses, offered them money to move out. They moved out. We did have to evict the White House. That was crazy. They had semis, tons of cars, campers, junk everywhere. And so we did the eviction, the cash for keys, cleaned this place up like crazy, got new tenants and everything. This place had a lot of cars outside. We got him to clean those up. And we really transformed this whole property into something completely different. And the city, we would thought, would be pretty happy about that. And instead, they've basically been hassling us ever since we bought it. And that's been pretty frustrating. So now we have a solution to stop that. We'll talk about that now while we show you this pretty cool building. All right, so here is the building. And I've only been in here once or twice. And once was with the city, and once when I very first bought the property. And it's always been full of auto repair shop. So the owner of that shop was always super cool, paid rent on time, had no issues with him. But the city, first they told us it was a chop shop. Like, they literally told us it's a chop shop. We never had any indication that was the case. Nobody else has ever said that. And it was, that's pretty sad right there. You'd accuse somebody of that without proof, but that's what they said. So he operated here for 1.5 years, and when we first bought it, the city told us this was an illegal business. They can't operate here because they changed the zoning in this area from industrial to highway 85 zone, something like that, where basically what they said is they want like high-end retail spaces with loft condos and different kinds of things going in around here. Now, if you remember looking outside, that might be kind of a stretch based on what's here right now. So this tenant had applied for a business license, did everything he's supposed to do after we bought it, and the city granted him the business license. They gave it to him, approved him, said, okay, you're good to go. They also complained that he had some cars parked here that didn't have license plates, weren't registered. He got rid of all those, cleaned the space up. So not only did we clean up all the other houses, all the stuff there, this place was cleaned up as well. And then we told the city, hey, his business license is approved. We're good to go. Thanks for your help. Like a month or two later, they said, oh, that was a mistake. His license shouldn't have been approved. It's an illegal business still. So after that, we're like, great. So we still did what they asked. We made sure all the cars were cleaned up, all registered that were outside and everything. And we didn't hear from them for a while. Like we really thought, okay, everything's okay. Maybe technically it's illegal, but they're not going to push things because there's literally like 10 businesses doing the exact same thing in this same zoning within a mile of here. Like I can show you those properties here when we leave. But then, probably 3 or 4 months ago, we got a lien filed against the property by the city for code violations. Or they sent us a code violation saying, we're going to charge you $500 because this is an illegal business and of code violations. And I'm like, okay. And I emailed the city and asked them what's going on. They said they'd look into it. And then like a week later, I got another one saying, okay, since you haven't paid it, it's now a $1,000 fine for code violations. And we're like, okay, that's really not very cool. But can you please, help us out and tell us what to do, what's going on? And they basically got really frustrated with me and told me I hadn't been communicating with them and had been operating an illegal business here and hadn't cleaned the place up. They literally said we hadn't done anything or cleaned up the place at all. And that's why we got the code violation. And so I wasn't real happy with that part of it. And I sent them pictures and showed them everything we'd cleaned up and the huge difference in the property. And then they're like, okay, maybe we should have a meeting and talk about what we can do and go from there. Because I'm like, I need to talk to the code violation people. I need to figure out what's going on. And eventually they're like, oh, well, you can file for a variance and allow this business to be here. And that was the first time they told me that in over a year of owning this property. I'm like, why didn't you guys tell me that before? And they didn't really have an answer for that. But anyway, we had a meeting. It was an online meeting because of COVID, even though it was pretty recent. And they said, okay, you can do a variance. All we need from you is a plan with landscaping, parking lot, a survey, and once you get all that done, send it to us, and maybe it'll be approved, maybe not. I'm like, okay, how do we know if it's approved? It's like, well, if you use this company we recommend and they do everything professionally, it'll probably be approved. But we need to have it within like a month. I'm like, really? You want us to do all this in a month? So they said, well, first let's go meet at the property and see what it looks like. So we came out here and we all met at the property, like 4 people from the city, and looked at this building while the tenant was still in here. All right, now I know it's kind of boring just staring at this building. So we'll come back in here and talk about some of the weird features, but I'll walk around outside while I talk some more too here. So we met at the building right here, had the city inspector out here, the fire chief was supposed to meet us, but he couldn't be here. The city planners and different people were here. And so basically I said, hey, we've talked about doing a survey. We've kind of started doing this plan, but it's going to cost us $5,000 to do a survey. And they said, well, maybe we'll look into it. And the lady said, nope, you have to do a survey. It doesn't matter. I'm like, well, what's the point of the survey? She's like, to make sure your building's in the right lines and where it's supposed to be. Well, I own this property. I own, like there's 3 different lots out here. And these 2 properties over here, they're on the same lot. This commercial property's on its own lot, and the blue one over there we showed you earlier is on its own lot. And according to the public assessor maps, like this one back corner might be slightly off the property line, but those are very inaccurate, you don't know, so that's why I wanted to survey. But what's interesting is, if it was in the property line, or off the property line, that means it's part of this street right here, which like I said, is literally a city street, even though they haven't maintained it or done a thing to it in 20 years. Another frustrating factor. And I said, okay, if this property is off its property line and is in the city street, right, the only way to fix it is to take property from the city. Why don't you guys give me this street? Because they had said they would give me this street when I first bought it, even though later on they said, oh no, we don't want to do that unless you tear everything down and rebuild a brand new, complex or something. They said, no, we're not going to give you the city, street, we're not going to do any of that, but we still need a survey to show if it's on there or not. And if it's not, you know, on its own lot, you probably won't get approved for the variance. So I'm like, okay, so there's $5,000. Then they had their city inspector come over and look at the building, and he said, yeah, it's an old building, you know, it's got some minor issues, but it's really structurally okay. And the city was like, well, what about these cracks? What about these cracks? What's wrong here? And the inspector's like, well, it's an old building, it's gonna have some cracks. And they're like, nope, we want a engineer to come out and inspect the building, and we're not paying for it, you need to pay for that too. And they're like, yeah, we need a landscaping plan, we need a parking lot plan, and we need this company to do it all professionally and send it to us within 2 months, or we're gonna start fining you again. And the really interesting thing, I think I mentioned this before on one of my shorts or stories, they're like, don't worry. Once you do all that, we're gonna redo this street so it's not so rough and, you know, full of potholes in 2023. So they wanted me to submit everything, have it all ready to go, improved in like 2 months, and they're gonna come through and patch up this street in 3 years, 2 or 3 years. Is it 2023 or 2024? So we had a new plan. After hearing all of this and realizing we'd literally have to spend probably close to $20,000 after paying the engineer, the survey company, the planner, and have all this before we even do any work. And we're realizing that the auto repair guy is paying $1,600 a month in rent, that it might not be worth going through all this. We had our new plan. So we'll talk about the new plan here right now. All right, so the new plan is, unfortunately, we had to tell Enrique that, hey, it's just not gonna work renting here. You know, we didn't have a long-term lease with him. It was a month-to-month lease at that point. And he had asked us before, he was frustrated with the city too, because they're sending him letters, talking to him all the time as well. And so he's like, hey, do I need to leave? What do I need to do? I'm like, no, we're gonna try and fix it. We're gonna try and allow you to stay. And unfortunately, after battling with him for months, we're like, hey, do you still have somewhere you can go? Will that work? And he's like, yeah, I'll find a place. So he moved out. We're supposed to tell the city by December 1st what our new plan is, or submit our plan. I think that's tomorrow or the next day. And our new plan is not to submit a plan and survey and all that stuff, but to not have it as an auto repair shop anymore. So it is no longer violating their codes. It's not a legal business. What we're going to do is move our little shop space. We've got like a 900 square foot little commercial shop where we store all our materials for my flipping business into here. So we're gonna move all our stuff into here, use it for storage, nothing illegal about that. We won't have stuff outside, so they can't complain about that. We're not running a business out of it, nothing wrong there. And then I'll rent out my other little 900 square foot shop. And I could probably rent that out for, $1,200 to $1,400 a month. I mean, maybe not, I would sure think so. So it won't even be that much less than what we rented this place out for. We'll have way more space here, which isn't always a good thing because that means we'll have more junk. But I can even store some of my cars in here as well too. So we have a new plan that might work out in the long run even better than our old plan. So I feel bad for the tenant. I feel bad he had to move all his stuff because he had so much stuff in here. He was in here for a couple of years. It was working out well for him. But we tried, and it just could not make it work with the city. So that's where we are. All right, now I know I've been rambling on for a long time, but there's a few more things I want to talk about. One thing, we don't really have heat in here. So it is almost December in Colorado. It's been extremely nice this year. It was literally 70 degrees yesterday. But he said this heater worked according to the previous tenant before he moved in, but it is not hooked up to gas. There's no gas meter, nothing at all. So we'd obviously want to get that looked at, make sure it works. He said he had an oil heater in here, which he said he was really glad the city didn't see, but they didn't. So that's how he's heating this. The power, it's got a lot of power coming in. I mean, it doesn't look like it's in horrible shape, but obviously we'll get that all checked out, see how that's working. Old brick structure, with a few cracks. The biggest one is right here, but nothing too crazy. And it's really a neat building. And I always love to do research and see what the buildings have been in the past. Obviously, I think you probably saw the Green Street glass sign on the outside. So at some point, it may have been a glass company, but I need to kind of do some more research and figure out what this might have been in the past. But we can see, like, it's a big span without any supports. And so these are some pretty big beams, or what are they, just 2x12s kind of sistered together with like these metal tie-ins that hold it all in place. And I am not an engineer. I did go to college for 1 year as a civil engineer, but they did not teach us this part of construction in that 1 year I was there. But that's pretty cool. And this whole place is pretty interesting, just the age of it. And one thing I don't know, I have no idea what the roof is like, but it's not leaking, so that's a good thing. And I bought this whole property for $410,000 back in the end of 2019, which is kind of crazy because it's probably worth $850,000, $900,000 now after we've got it rented, fixed up, and all that. Now something else that's weird. It's got a swamp cooler on the inside of the property, which the tenant's like, yeah, we know it's not supposed to be like that. We actually had it that way because he's had another person who rented the back half of the building from him, kind of a subtenant, and he said he used it as a filter. So somehow they're running it in reverse to filter out fumes from in here to the outside. And then he said they didn't want to take it off because the old tenants who were in the houses kept trying to break in and mess things up. So that's why that's like that. So that's kind of interesting. It does have a working bathroom, and there are baseboard heaters in here that we think work. So we just turned them on. So yeah, I can feel it. It's warmer here. So if we keep this door shut, that front office has baseboard heaters. If we keep that door shut and just have the heat off in this big part until we get it fixed and all sorted out, we should be good to go. Has lots of windows on the inside. They're actually real glass in decent shape, but you can see they boarded them over at some point. Probably they just didn't want them to get broken. But it's kind of a cool building, pretty neat, and it should be pretty fun having it as our new shop space. Now, the lighting's not amazing. It's pretty dark, and I know I said this before in our other property. Like, I can't see the fluorescent lights flashing in real life, but I can see it on my camera right now. So in real life, it's not really blinking like that, although it might be driving you crazy watching the video, and I apologize for that. But the camera picks that up more than our actual eyes do. And we have a nice big overhead garage door. There's no opener or anything. It's just a manual door, but that's nice to have. And then also another back door there. So I could fit a whole lot of cars in here, but I would like my cars to be closer to my house because when I store them in other places, they tend to just sit there and I don't drive them, and that's not good for the cars. But that's the property. Here we are with a whole new plan, and hopefully that works for everybody. The city, us, makes them happy, and we can move on without them finding us and sending us letters and getting all angry about everything. Now, we might send you show you some of the other businesses around here that are also operating with an extremely similar business as these tenants did. And I asked the city about that, and they're like, oh, well, they have to go through the same process that you would have to go through to get a variance. But they're still operating. I mean, I'm not seeing any landscaping changes, anything happening different. So if they are, I feel bad for those businesses. They have to spend all that money just to operate as they have been for many years. And if not, then, well, whatever. All right. Thanks for watching. Like I said, we'll probably show some other of those businesses here. Splice those in. Love the likes, love the comments, love the new subscribers. So this will be an interesting one. We might have some more updates on this when we move some stuff in here. We might not, who knows. And of course, we'll have more updates on our other videos going on. The complex has been crazy. We're making progress there. The Ocho, the 8-unit property, we've got some news there as well that's been happening recently. We've got lots of flips going on, other rental properties we're buying. So a lot going on. If you've not subscribed, we try to keep you guys entertained. All right, take care, and we will be back soon.